can get started. So today we have Laura Kelly. Thank you for coming. Laura serves as a Senior Communications Manager for the Office of the CTO at Dick's Sporting Goods. She is a 2019 MBA graduate of the Tepper School of Business at CMU and a current PhD student in Media and Communications at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Before her tenure at Dick's, Laura was the Associate Director, Social Media and Central Marketing and Communications at CMU, where she worked on initiatives around President Obama's Frontiers Conference, the Tony Awards, and South by Southwest. Before CMU, Laura was the Digital Communications Manager at Innovation Works, the region's premier seed fund for technology startups. Companies she worked with went on to receive follow-on funding and be acquired. So Laura, I'll hand it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. While I am sharing my screen here, I'll do a little plug for open positions. In technology at Dick's Sporting Goods, we have lots of open positions. I think we have about 80 open right now. So take a look. I have my contact information too, if anybody wants to chat more about that afterwards. So we're doing plugs. I want to make sure I do that one. Okay, so why are we here today? We're going to talk about using digital to achieve your goals. And so the agenda today, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. Make sure that we're starting together, that we're all using the same terms and everybody understands where we are when we're talking about certain things. And I want to talk about audience and really, figuring out who your audience is and figuring out where they are and how to be there too. We'll talk about psychographics versus demographics and the relationship economy. We'll talk about how to test some of these things. And then I have Social 101 here. And this is really, if we run out of time, you can get these slides. Allison's going to send them around to everyone. But we just have a lot of really great stats about all of the different social media networks. So put that to the end so we could talk a little bit more about some of these meatier topics, these more philosophical topics, and then all of the data there so you can make some good decisions about where you should be and where your audiences are. So like Allison said, I'm the Senior Communications Manager for the Office of the CTO at Dick's and graduated from Tepper's MBA program, and I'm currently working on my PhD in Media and Communications. And I am in my second year of my PhD program, and I'm really focused on digital communications, digital empathy, and audience analysis. And digital empathy is a pretty new field, and it's really the study of being emotionally and cognitively intelligent when dealing with people through digital communications versus in person. And so far, it's only really been studied for healthcare and for education. But I think I'm doing this with you via Zoom from my kitchen. A lot of you are joining us on Zoom. I think that there's really a lot of white space for how this can be studied when it comes to audience communication, when it comes to employee communication, that sort of thing. And so I wanted to make sure to talk about that so you sort of understand where I'm coming from when I talk to you about all of this. So I want to make sure that we're all starting together and we have all the same terms. So when I say KPI, I mean key performance indicator. When I say lift, I mean improvement. A follower or fan are interchangeable terms. So that's really anyone who likes or follows your accounts on social. And engagement, I'm going to use as far as any sort of action from a follower or fan. So that could be a like, that could be a comment, a share, if it's on Instagram, voting on a poll, whatever it might be. So the first thing, that I want us all to think about, and really want you to go back and think about these things, right? Who is your audience? And this is key. So many times I've experienced that if we're building something, or if we're launching a new product, or if we're thinking about sponsoring a certain event or whatever it might be, we're thinking about it from our point of view, right? When really that first question should be, who is the audience that we want to be reaching? Who is that audience that we want to be taking some sort of action, that we want to, take from a fan or a follower to a customer. And once you figure that out, and I think it takes work, right? Like, you really have to be very thoughtful about who that audience is. Then you need to think about where they are. So, I think there are a lot of trendy social media apps that seem really cool, and we might like them for specific reasons. But if our audience isn't there, it doesn't matter if it's the latest trend, in the grand scheme of things. We have to be very specific to showing up where our audiences are. And then, what do we want them to do? Do we want them, like, what is the purpose of our communications with them? Is it that we want them to take an action? Do we want them to sign up for the newsletter? Do we want them to fill out an information form so we can get in touch with them? Do we want them to just get some more knowledge about us so that we become familiar to them? Again, being very thoughtful about what that is that we want them to do. And then again, thinking about what information we can get from them. And so I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute here. But I wanted to flash this slide up because once you sort of understand who your audience is, figuring out where they are, somebody else has done that for us, right? So this is from Pew Research, and it really tells us where different demographics are as far as social media channels go. And I think that this is very helpful when really thinking about where is the place that you want to show up. So going back to that, like, what information can we get from them? These are two screenshots, and I realize that they're not very flattering screenshots of either one of them. But Instagram, these are both Instagram stories. If it turns out that Instagram is where your audience is, you have lots of really great options, right? So this one on the left here is a yes or no poll. And for this person as an influencer, she's asking this question before she shares something to see if there's interest in what she's sharing so that she gets that further engagement. There is a local clothing store in the next neighborhood from me, and they put up all of the dresses that they were considering buying for the winter season with a, would you buy this? Yes, no. And so then they're making their inventory decisions off of that, right? So there are ways that we can be engaging with our audiences to get information from them to help us with our decision making. And then one of the things that is really great about Instagram lately is they just changed it. Before, the only people who could add a link to stories were folks with over 10,000 followers, and now they've opened that up to everybody. So again, if your audience is on Instagram, that's a great thing to know. This is another thing, right? So going back to that, what can your audience do for you? So Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook all have this lookalike audience feature, right? So once you establish that audience, yes, my audience is on LinkedIn, and they are, software engineers, they are mid-career, they are mostly from this list of schools, whatever it might be. There are algorithms on all three of these platforms that then help you reach people who look like that, right? Who have those same characteristics, so that if you know, hey, this has been really useful for this group who share all of these characteristics, you can target those folks again. One thing to consider with this, depending on who your audience is, you might run into some privacy things. So for example, we wanted to do something like this when I was working at Carnegie Mellon. The social media person for Tepper actually wanted to do something like this with students, by uploading their email address and getting a custom lookalike audience based on the current students, which is a great idea. But there were some rules with higher ed. There's some laws in place that you have to protect students' data and things like that. And you can't just use their email addresses in that way. So that's the one thing that I would caution you about, is if you do decide that this might be the right thing for you to do, that there are some things that you need to consider. But again, thinking about your audience isn't just a customer at the end of the day, right? They're a resource for you to make decisions, right? They're like a mini focus group. They are a resource for you to get to other folks who look like them. And I think, again, figuring out who that audience is so that you're able to grow it is going to be so important. So then, we're going to be talking a lot about social media, but thinking about where else you can be a thought leader. So, if you are starting your own business, if you're, creating your own product, you are a thought leader, right? You're doing something that's brand new. So you are the thought leader in that space. And so again, if let's say LinkedIn is where your audience is, that's a great place to be a thought leader and to set yourself up as a thought leader. And ways to do that are, writing articles that you publish on LinkedIn, or responding to articles and why you think certain things. So again, setting yourself up for people to come to you as that leader. And then think about too, what organizations or who in your network can help you get your message out that you are a thought leader. So when I was at Innovation Works, there was a company who I was working with, and we just started brainstorming, like, okay, so your company Twitter has 120 followers, your company Facebook has 80 followers, right? It was very small, and we were thinking about, okay, how can we grow that? And so we started talking about their personal networks and what sort of resources they had in their person. And it turned out one of the co-founders was the cousin of a famous comedian who had talked about him in his stand-up. So his personal Twitter had, 100,000 followers or whatever it might be. And so we completely switched our approach, right? So instead of, having all of these messages come from their company page, we had a lot of them come from him because he was able to use that network that he had and, again, be that thought leader among the people that he was following. But thinking about, the different organizations at Carnegie Mellon and throughout Pittsburgh and beyond that could help you tell this story, who could sort of give you that stamp of of legitimacy by them helping to share this story with you. So thinking about, okay, when I am meeting with my advisor or my mentor or someone who's investing or whatever it is, this is another ask that you can make of them. It's not necessarily for investment or more time or whatever it is. It's a platform for you to continue to share that message. And then again, thinking about how you can take the things that you're doing offline and repurpose them for online things. I think, the last 18 months, we've all gotten really good at this, right? So we aren't having the same meetings in person that we were 18 months ago. And so we have repurposed them to be online. We're not necessarily, reaching customers the same way either. So thinking about what sort of things you are already doing or have done offline that you can repurpose for online. So then I want to talk a little bit about psychographics versus demographics. So I showed you that Pew chart, and it had different demographic information and where they are, and that's really important. But something to think about too, and this sort of goes into that lookalike audience, is where are folks in these psychographic categories, right? So their personalities, their lifestyles, interests, values, those qualitative pieces, right? So as more and more people become comfortable online, the way that we are categorizing them is changing, right? So we're not necessarily going after, the 35-year-old mom of two because XYZ and they all look the same, right? That 35-year-old mom of two might be super interested in blockchain, right? And so maybe the things that she's passionate about would put her more in a category with other folks in that area. And so thinking about that and thinking about what are those qualities, what are the things that you can qualify versus quantify that make up your audience. And the reason that's so important is because we're really moving into the relationship economy. So from, I guess, the end of World War II to present, we've been in a consumer economy, right? And so we've been sort of mass producing, and this is a one size fits all approach. And that's changing now. Now we're very much looking at personalization. And the relationship economy is where we're moving towards. So I'm sure you've heard that saying, people like to do business with people they like, or, whatever the actual saying is, but right. You have one chance to make a first impression. You can go on and on with these things, but it's very much what's driving this shift towards the relationship economy. And so one of the things that I like to share when I talk about the relationship economy is a story that I heard at a conference where folks were talking about the relationship economy. And it was a gentleman who was engaged to be married and had a wedding website on the knot.com. And he, had everything set up, and this is the date and yada, yada, yada. Well, then they called off the wedding. And so he needed to take down this website. So he called the customer service folks. They helped him. They were very sympathetic throughout the whole thing, right? And he thought, well, this is great. Like they are recognizing me. They're seeing me as a person and not, just customer number 2,503, right? Fast forward to the day after his original wedding date, and he gets an email from the Knot with a big congratulations. we're so happy for you. And now here's how you can order thank you cards, right? And he said, like, oh my gosh, they didn't care about me at all, right? Like they had no relationship with me. And so that's where his, passion for this relationship economy really came from, is that across everything that you're doing, you need to have a consistent message to your consumer. So that comes through company culture. So are you saying that, on your landing page, are you saying that you are really trying to promote work-life balance by streamlining processes, but then your actual employees are working, 20 hours a day? It's making sure that your landing page and your email and your social media messages are all consistent. One of the things that we talk about at Dick's, and what I'm doing right now, is like, what is our single source of truth? Where are we, pointing to, so that we're all, playing from the same playbook, where we all, are moving in the same direction. And it's really hard when you try to scale that, but starting this at an early stage is really going to help when you are growing and getting that customer loyalty, because again, that is what customers are looking for now, is these relationships, being comfortable with who they are spending their money with. And there are so many different outlets that they can find out, who you really are on. What else I wanted to talk about? So we, talked about all of the different ways and places that you can really use your audience, right? And you're really asking for engagement. And what that is really going to help you with is testing to see what's working, right? So another conference that I attended, one of the speakers, I forget exactly what company that they were, but it was, I think, a boxed mattress company, one of the boxed mattress companies. And what they did was, instead of surveying people to say, would you or wouldn't you, they just set up a really quick and dirty Squarespace website and tried to sell their stuff, right? So so again, instead of sending out a survey and saying, would you pay $49.99 for this pillow, they set up a website and spent some money on some ads to target some folks, and then saw if they actually would buy it at $49.99. And so, that was definitely a consumer based product, and it was something that they could learn quickly from and iterate quickly from. But there are lots of ways to do this, for things that you're not spending money on, and for, anything from B2B to B2C companies, right? So for example, if your audience, if you decide your audience is on LinkedIn, what you can do is start testing the type of content that is working with them, right? So what I mean by that is, okay, so you're going to have your CEO post an article about a new technology that you're integrating into your product and why it is so exciting and why it matters so much. So you're going to post that on Monday at 5 p.m., for example. The next Monday at 5 p.m., you might post a link to an article with just a simple caption. And then the following Monday at 5 p.m., you might post a team photo with a link to, a link to your job site if you're hiring. So then you can see, okay, we're keeping the time of day and the day of the week the same, but let's see how our audience engaged with us, right? Like you can go into the analytics and see, okay, well, we got a ton of comments on that CEO piece, and that was really great. Started some conversations. It gave us some ideas. The photo, we got a lot of likes, but people didn't click through. And then the link to the article with the caption, like, yeah, that didn't really do much for us either way. So what do those things tell us, right? So one, it sort of tells us, well, this thought leadership is working. Two, people care more about what we are doing and saying versus what we're sharing from other links. And three, that okay, maybe Monday at 5 o'clock is a great time for us. So then the next thing you would try is like, well, is it as good as Thursday at 11 a.m.? And just test and iterate that way. And those are the things that certainly take resources. And by resources, I mean people, but don't take any additional money. And this is another thing that I absolutely recommend doing so you can really test and measure what is working for you. And it's setting up UTM parameters. So if you go into Google Analytics and just Google campaign URL builder, they'll bring you here and walk you through step-by-step what to do. And why this is important is it can help you figure out where exactly your customers are coming from when you have a certain call to action. So by that, I mean, if you are putting a link across all of your social media, in your newsletter, wherever it might be, that you want people to come to your website and, fill out a job application, let's say. If you do that by just copying and pasting that URL into all of those different things, it will tell you, yeah, this came from Facebook. Yeah, this came from Twitter. Yeah, this came from, Instagram or LinkedIn. But what you will never know is if it was from your link or if it was from, someone else sharing it, right? So these UTM parameters let you see exactly the source that things are coming from. So again, you can say, okay, when we post about jobs on LinkedIn, that's our number one sender to our website, right? That's the top of what we're doing. If we don't do that, we're not going to see the traffic, right? And so that way, again, you can decide where your resources should or shouldn't be spent. So now, like I said, there are lots of different stats here on these last slides, but to help you start to think about where you should be, this is Facebook, but changing to Meta, right? And those things will change with it as far as what people are doing, who's there, who is willing to stay after the change happens. So I think that will be very interesting to see. And this time next year, if I'm back to talk about this again, I'm really excited to see what Meta does. But for now, Facebook, here are some of the things that are true across Facebook audiences. Now, I have a note here that this will differ by audiences. So you have to, look at your own analytics and figure out what works for your own audience. But there are billions of users, right? And most are using mobile. So what does that mean to you, right? That means that, maybe if I'm taking a video, I'm not going to do it horizontally, because if most people are on their phones, they're going to be looking at it that way, right? It's still that 25 to 34-year-old group that is the most common age demographic. So again, thinking about where your audiences are and how much time they're spending there. You see that the most traffic happens in the middle of the week between 1 and 3. So, people are done with their lunches and they're taking a little afternoon break, right? And 20% of all US page views online are happening on Facebook. So it's still very much a very active site. Here are those analytics that I've been talking about, right? So once you have a company page, you have the ability to look at these insights, and it will tell you, right, when people are looking at your page and when they're engaging with your posts and things like that. So this, when your fans are online, right? So this is so beneficial so that you are providing them with content when they are there. And you can go deeper and deeper and deeper into all of this to, again, set some baselines and measure from there and test some different things out. YouTube is owned by Google and is the second largest search engine after Google, right? So it's an important place to be just from a search engine perspective, let alone video. But what's great about it, since it is tied with Google, their keyword planner is another free tool that you can use. You don't have to create that ad at the end of the day, but they will help you figure out your keywords. So when you're tagging your videos and when you are coming up with your captions and your titles and things like that, you're using the right words to get your audience there. Something that's really interesting to me is the 68% watch YouTube to help make a purchasing decision. So I've been in my role at Dick's since March, but before that, I was in our product development department. And we started to create our product videos for our fitness equipment. So, weight benches and things like that, with YouTube in mind, right? So we had initially created them just on our listing for our e-commerce site. But then we started to think about how that could be used on YouTube. And again, the click-throughs that we then saw to the actual product page and people, making that purchase grew exponentially because we took this into consideration that people are shopping, people are looking for those decisions and information to help them make those decisions on YouTube. Instagram, a lot of people are following businesses, right? And people really like videos more than photo posts, and stories are really highly consumed. And I think what's great about that is that videos and stories do not have to be highly produced, right? I don't think people want them to be highly produced. It's sort of a point of view perspective. And again, from your phone is very much not only accepted, but expected. So again, you can sort of look at these things and think, okay, my audience is on Instagram. We don't have a lot of resources. We certainly can't hire a video team, but I have a smartphone and I can, give little updates about what we're working on, or link them to the product page, or get information, from them about what sort of things they're interested in, in our next round. So I think it is, again, just really important to start with that audience and who they are, what they want, and go from there. Here's some stuff on Twitter. Hashtags here are important with 100% more engagement than posts without it. Again, mobile is where people are consuming this stuff. 93% is happening on mobile. Videos are getting 10 times the engagement. And again, thinking about that. So you're watching this on mobile, you're used to seeing things a certain way when you're on mobile. So again, you don't have to have these highly produced videos to be effective on Twitter. And then LinkedIn is fantastic for those of you in B2B businesses. So this is 50% plus of social traffic to B2B websites and blogs come from LinkedIn. That's fantastic. Talking again about being a thought leader, only 0.2% of users are publishing articles, but 45% of the people reading them are in upper level positions. So there's so much space for you to establish yourself as a thought leader and be seen by the decision makers at places that you would want to be seen. TikTok is getting more and more popular. I didn't check the consumer spending on it. This is from the summer, so it may have changed. And I could certainly believe that it did, because TikTok is becoming more and more mainstream, right? So it very much started out as this Gen Z 13 to 24-year-old, and that's still like the big audience there, but more and more people are going there for content. And I spoke to an environmental science master's program at Point Park, and they were talking about all of the different environmental scientists and people trying to protect the environment who are using TikTok as a way to get their messaging out. And then Clubhouse. So this is a brand new one. It started about a year ago, and it's a voice-based social platform with rooms that are based on topics, and it's on your phones for now. They just recently, in the last 2 or 3 months, opened it up. It's no longer invitation only. And I'm actually working on a research study right now with one of my professors and a few of her colleagues at different universities about why people are using it, why people are drawn to it. And anecdotally, this is not any sort of analyzed data yet, but anecdotally, the folks that I've been talking to are spending a ton of time on this site, and that they're gleaning so much information from it and finding their community from it. And because it's voice-based, they're able to do it while they are, doing simple tasks at work. They're able to listen in on their headphones, or if they're working from home or whatever it is, and they're in those daily tasks that might not take the same amount of concentration as others, they're able to participate here. So like I said, Allison can send this around to everybody. Here are some of the sources and other places that I think are great with different things to think about. And then by all means, please get in touch. I know we did sort of a high level overview here, but I'm more than happy to meet with anyone who is interested to really talk about your specific business and your specific needs, and how to start to set up some things so that you are engaging with your audiences. I've done that with folks from these Connects series and different classes that Dave has introduced me to. And to be completely honest, it's really what pushed me to go back and get a PhD, because I really enjoy that interaction process, and hope to eventually be in a classroom and not a Zoom room, interacting and sharing ideas. So with that, I will stop the sharing, or maybe I'll leave that up in case you need my email address, but I'll take whatever questions you might have.